Ooh, look at the time.
Welcome to MojoPlays, and there's nothing we love more than screaming at the top of our lungs and changing our underwear with a good old-fashioned horror movie. For those who want the scares to continue, thankfully, there are video game adaptations of some of the greatest horror classics to keep the terror train chugging along. Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos. Bloodwing's Pumpkinhead's Revenge. Probably the most obscure entry on our list, Pumpkinhead has developed a cult following for its schlocky horror films. Seemingly for no other reason than it was the style at the time, Pumpkinhead's Revenge is a Doom clone with some adventure game elements sprinkled in for good measure. The game incorporates clips from the film, and players are then quizzed on the clips themselves to receive items in order to progress. Even despite being developed alongside the film it's based on, Pumpkinhead's Revenge still feels rushed, and many of the horror elements admittedly come from the muddy graphics themselves, but the game also feels like a time capsule of the absurdity of video game adaptations of the time. Somehow, it's still better than the movie it's based on. SweetHome. Survival horror video games wouldn't be what they are today without SweetHome. Based on the Japanese horror film of the same name, SweetHome traps players inside an intricately designed mansion filled with puzzles and branching paths that also happens to be a supernatural hotspot. Players need to navigate the maze of twisted hallways and rooms, avoiding the ghosts and other supernatural entities that haunt the mansion, while keeping as many survivors as possible alive until they make their escape. All the elements of classic survival horror are present here. The convoluted puzzles, the narrow combat spaces, the limited inventory, and even diary entries that expand on the game's narrative. SweetHome is a landmark title that is not only replayable even today, but laid the groundwork for every survival horror title that followed it, including the massively popular Resident Evil series. A Nightmare on Elm Street. Developed by Rare, of all developers, the adaptation of Wes Craven's classic film almost perfectly nails all the elements that made the original such an icon. While the 2D perspective and gameplay might seem dated by today's standards, the locations and areas you can explore, particularly if you're unlucky enough to fall asleep and fall into Freddy's nightmare, do a fantastic job of creating atmosphere. Players need to find and collect all of Freddy's bones without falling asleep, and thankfully there's plenty of coffee to hold off the dream realm. Once you encounter Freddy, players need to avoid him while attempting to find a boombox to wake them up and return to the real world. The Castlevania-style gameplay proved to be an inspired choice given the supernatural elements of the film and the dream realm. Honestly, this is as close as we ever want to come to facing Freddy himself. Friday the 13th, the game. Asymmetrical horror games might be all the rage these days, with nearly every horror franchise getting some kind of adaptation, but while the likes of Leatherface and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise is also terrifying, nothing really compares to the legend himself, Jason, from the Friday the 13th series. With maps based on areas lifted directly from Jason's catalog of films, players need to work together to escape each location by gathering supplies and escaping Jason's rampage. The many locations, characters, and especially Jason himself, in all his possible incarnations, are recreated with incredible detail, and surviving one player relentlessly hunting the group is a truly intense experience. Sadly, the game has been delisted due to licensing issues, but remains one of the most faithful adaptations of Jason and the Friday the 13th series. EvilDead Regeneration.
Listen up, Shake and Bake. I eat evil for breakfast and danger for dinner, so spread the word. Ash is back in business.
Much like in the films, Ash hasn't had the best run of luck when it comes to video games, but thankfully Regeneration gives good old Ash a proper groovy adventure. Also as in the films, Regeneration only wants players to have a hell of a good time and more than delivers on that promise. Taking place in an alternate reality where Ash was never sent back in time after the events of Evil Dead 2, Ash is once again the only thing standing between the Deadites and the end of the world. This time around, Ash also teams up with a halfling Deadite named Sam, whom Ash is free to kill at will, either for fun or to solve the game's puzzles.
If I go puppet master on Bacon Bit here, will I be able to shut his stinking pie hole?
You will be able to do much more than that.
Armed with your boomstick and chainsaw, Ash is free to hack and slash his way through the minions of hell, much to his and our delight. Hail to the king, baby.
Yeah, baby. Sing for the king.
Predator Concrete Jungle. No alien species has made the cultural impact the Predator has, besides one other one, but we'll get to them shortly. Predator Concrete Jungle is one of the few solo outings the Predator has had in video games. Leaving the lush jungles behind for a more rural hunting ground, Concrete Jungle gives players all the tools and weapons of the Yautja and sets them loose to hunt their prey and establish their dominance as the ultimate hunter, while also recovering stolen Predator technology that has altered the course of humanity. Full of stealth takedowns, a multitude of traps, and bosses worthy of the Predator, Concrete Jungle not only manages to recreate the feeling of the films from the Predator's perspective, but delivers an experience better than many of the Predator films of the time.
I will walk to this city!
Jaws Unleashed. When you hear that there's a Jaws video game, you likely expect to be hunting the monstrous shark. But Jaws Unleashed unleashes you as the shark on the unsuspecting beachgoers. Besides the open ocean, players can attack swimmers, fishermen, and boats, hunting them along the beach, amusement parks, and the numerous ocean-polluting plants scattered around the waters. Given the entire game is designed around swimming through the open ocean, naturally the camera can be a bit finicky, but you'll quickly get over it as your next meal swims into view. Players can even upgrade their shark with new moves and abilities to become an even more terrifying predator and wreak even more havoc beneath the waves while humming the iconic theme. Giving players the chance to play the giant great white was inspired and far more entertaining than simply scouring the waters for the shark like in the films. Blair Witch. The Blair Witch Project was unlike any other film upon its release and terrified audiences with its shockingly realistic take on horror. These days, that format is much more common, but the world of the Blair Witch is still as unsettling today as it was 2 decades ago, and Bloober Team's adaptation of the source material more than lives up to the legacy. While investigating a missing child case, players must explore the supernatural woods in search of clues to uncover the mystery. Insanely atmospheric, Blair Witch perfectly recaptures the sense of helplessness and unease of the film, with only your good boy companion Bullet to keep you from going insane amongst the trees. Blair Witch might not be as popular with horror fanatics as it once was, but the video game adaptation more than delivers the atmosphere and chilling lore of the witch for newcomers to get lost in the woods.
Get in the corner. Don't look at her.
TheThing.
What do you think it is, Captain?
I don't know, and I don't care.
Looks like a goddamn UFO to me. This shit gives me the creeps.
Few horror movies from the 80s have managed to stand the test of time like John Carpenter's TheThing. And with the release of the TheThing video game, not only did fans get to return to the Antarctic research post, but they also got answers to the film's ambiguous ending 2 decades later. Everything in the game is lovingly recreated from the movie, and while you will naturally be fighting against the Thing, you'll also need to keep your squad in check as one by one they become distrustful of one another and will even refuse to share supplies, believing you to be the Thing. You also need to constantly be aware of your squad's behavior, as the Thing just as easily could have replaced someone on the team and infiltrated your ranks. It's a true sequel that not only expands on the film, but also perfectly plays into the player's paranoias.
Game over? This game is just beginning.
AlienIsolation. Arguably, there is no alien species more terrifying than the xenomorphs, the perfect organism. Ridley Scott's Alien remains one of the most atmospheric and terrifying films of all time, and AlienIsolation, a direct follow-up to Scott's masterpiece, perfectly recaptures the absolute dread and inescapable horror of the xenomorph. Instead of fighting back against the titular alien, players are always on their back foot, with running and hiding being the only strategy that can most effectively keep you alive. The xenomorph's brilliantly terrifying AI relentlessly stalks your every movement, and the fact it can even learn from your gameplay style makes it even more unpredictable and horrifying. The Sevastopol space station is equally unsettling, recreating the retro-futuristic technology of the films while also giving the xenomorph the perfect hunting ground. In space, no one can hear you scream, but your neighbors certainly can. Which classic horror movie would you like to see get an adaptation next? Share your picks in the comments. Did you enjoy this video? Check out these other clips from MojoPlays, and be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos.